Another way to change a sound, besides editing its frequency content, is to control how its volume behaves over time. Effects designed to manage the dynamic range of our sound are up next. First, compressor, which, as its name suggests, is a fairly standard compressor effect. It compresses the volume range of a sound by turning it down a certain amount, according to a ratio, when the volume passes above a threshold. How quickly the compressor responds is controlled by attack and release. And a makeup knob can increase the overall output gain to compensate for the lost peak volume if you want to reduce dynamic range without reducing overall loudness or presence of a sound in a mix, a common use for a compressor. RMS, peak, and fast refer to different detection modes. RMS listens to a somewhat averaged volume level of the input signal over a period of time, whilst peak and fast allow the compressor to respond quickly and very quickly, respectively, to momentary audio peaks in the input signal. All three modes are useful depending on the scenario and the intended effect. Finally, the sidechain option allows the compressor to listen to a signal other than the audio signal flowing through it, so you can, for example, compress a pad based on the peaks in a drum sound, whether or not the drum sound is actually being heard as part of your audio signal flow. Dynamics is a more advanced compressor effect which allows you not only to turn down volume above a threshold, but turn up volume below a threshold. Or if you like, you can do the opposite to increase dynamic range, a process called expansion. The thresholds can be separated or brought together, and a knee can be applied to smooth the transition between processing and no processing. Let's talk next about limiter, which is like a super compressor, a brick wall which doesn't allow a sound beyond a threshold at all. There's no ratio control because the ratio is essentially infinite. However much the input signal exceeds the threshold, the output signal won't go a single decibel higher. It's limited at the threshold. This is often the last effect on a mastering chain, to ensure there's no unpleasant clipping distortion as an artifact of sounds peaking above the maximum amplitude. A limiter avoids clipping by responding gradually over a near imperceptible time frame, up to a few milliseconds, to rein in a signal. But sometimes you want to clip a signal on purpose, just shear overages off at the sample-by-sample level, regardless of distortion, or even deliberately to introduce distortion. That's what clipper's for. It introduces a false ceiling with essentially no response time at all. This can result in harsh distortion, so a knee control allows a kind of soft buffer ratio as the sound approaches the ceiling, so that distortion can be controlled and curtailed while absolutely containing the peak volume of a sound. One final way to manage peak volume in a signal is to measure the amplitude of another sound sample by sample and reduce the amplitude of each sample of your target sound by exactly enough to allow both to fit perfectly under a given threshold. That's what compactor does, and it's great for extreme and targeted loudness management in the mix for all kinds of different styles of music. Then there's gate, which is an audio gate which only opens and allows sound through if the volume of the signal is above a certain threshold. This is great for removing background noise from a sound, or for isolating the peaks of drums, for example. Its effect can be slight or total, and can happen smoothly and slowly, or immediately, even using look-ahead at the cost of a little additional latency, to be sure of catching all the fastest peaks. Flip turns the gate upside down, so it's only open when the sound is quiet, and louder portions of the sound can't get through. And again, a sidechain option allows one signal to be affected by another. Transgate is a kind of creative gating tool which opens and closes a gate not based on the amplitude of the incoming signal, but based on a predetermined looping rhythmic sequence defined by the lights on this wheel. There are a variety of different patterns, and each can be edited simply by clicking. The envelopes created by the gate are adjustable, as is the beat division on which the sequencer advances, the eighth note swing value, and the overall mix of the gated to bypass signal. And finally, there's transient shaper, a special kind of compressor which focuses through its specific response times on shaping the initial burst, the transient, of percussive sounds. Essentially, it allows us to make fast percussive hits sound even more punchy, or less so, and to emphasize or de-emphasize the tail of the sound as it dies away. This is massively, but not exclusively, useful for drums.